to be honest. I want to hear your thoughts on
hit
Khamzat
me.
Chimaev wrote a very cryptic tweet this week saying 185. And if I were to get into what I think that means, I think he's moving to 185. What do you reckon about this?
Do you reckon? I reckon that's just like his body count after the fight. Yeah, if I had to, I wouldn't be shocked, to be fair. He's a stud. Yeah, if I had to bet, I'd say it's a move up of weight class. £8 is a lot, you know what I mean? And there's not. Welterweight's got some legit wrestlers. Like the path to gold at 85 is probably a little bit easier. I know he probably doesn't think like that, but life's just going to be easier, and like they're more than winnable fights to get to that strap. What do you think?
Like you said, £8 is a lot, and I think the risk was too high for the UFC to put him in a main event, or even if you think of a title picture, he would actually have to make 170. So that championship weight was a very, very long way off. The one thing I will say to this is the first thing that I thought was pure sadness, because I wanted with my whole heart to see Khamzat Chimaev versus Colby Covington. I wanted that
I'd
fight.
love nothing more.
And that's what we're going to be starved of, which I am slightly gutted. But like what you were saying, obviously no title is easy, and obviously we preface that, and of course, but you have a look at the 170 division, and you have a look at the grapplers and the wrestlers that you've got in there, and you have a look at the grapplers coming up, the likes of Shavkat Rakhmonov, Sean Brady's of the world.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Beasts.
Leon Edwards at the top of the tree, Kamaru Usman, all very, very good grapplers. When you have a look at 185, a lot less well-credentialed. You have people at the top like Vittori and like Paulo Costa, but they're not storied grapplers like someone like a Sean Brady or a Kamaru Usman. I think when we have a look at matchmaking, I think this leads us to two people, and I want to hear what you think is next for him, because you have the first one, which a lot of people are talking about, Bobby Knuckles, which for anyone is a ridiculously difficult fight, and you can bring us onto that. But the second one that I think makes the most sense in terms of saleability, name recognition, and actually quite winnable for Khamzat Chimaev is Paulo Costa.
Yeah, that's the fight for sure. I'm not trying to see him versus Bobby Knuckles, who's Bobby Knuckles is my favourite fighter, by the way, for those who didn't know that. And they said they liked each other. But yeah, I think that's the fight. 1,000% that's the fight. You know, Costa's kind of coming into this like territory where he's actually coming across really likeable, and he's like the good guy. Before he was a bit of a meathead, a bit of a whatever, but like he's marketing himself really well. And Chimaev is not doing the opposite, but he's going the other end. So like the drama, the matchup, the style, I think it's perfect. I think that I didn't even think of that really off the top of my head. But yeah, that is the match to make, 100%.
The thing that makes me laugh about Paulo Costa, like you said, he's just taken his full 180, and every fan has pretty much forgot that he missed weight by about 20 pounds just a couple of months.
Just didn't fancy it.
Just a couple of months ago. And the funniest thing about that whole ordeal was not the fact of, he said he had, well, he did say he had injuries, to be honest. He didn't come in and just miss weight and have a sad face. He just kind of painted the picture as in it would be disrespectful for him to make weight and you not to change this to 220, and that would be disrespectful to Paulo Costa and the fans.
Yeah.
And I don't know how he's got away with this, but it's kind of
nuts.
worked, and now he's weirdly this fan favourite. He says he calls Khamzat Chimaev Gourmet Chen Chen, which I don't know why that makes me laugh.
Yeah.
It just makes
I
me
didn't
laugh.
know.
And
so good.
obviously, what the UFC always want is a storyline, and they have the whole UFC PI, Paulo Costa and Jake Shields versus the whole of All Stars Gym. So that is going to be cut into a million promo videos, and I think it's actually a really fun fight. I think it's a really fun fight because the one thing I will say about Khamzat Chimaev is, and obviously you'll know, even just with sort of moving your weight and your body composition changing quite a bit at the moment, but obviously he didn't he didn't make 170, and he didn't really get close. But he was also the entire camp and for the however many months before trying to make 170. So you're keeping your body at somewhat of a restriction. So it is interesting, I think, to then go. Obviously, we've seen John Jones on the other end of the spectrum, where he spent 2 years building himself into a heavyweight. I don't think he's going to do that, and I don't think he has to because he's got a bigger frame. But he's not going to be massive. He's not going to be huge at 185. I'm not saying he has to be, but I am interested to see how that stacks up against someone who's going to come in at 200 plus pounds like Paulo Costa, who hits very hard and who is game. It's almost like a Gilbert Burns, but just heavier with better striking and less jiu-jitsu, right? So
sure, I get what you're saying, though. I get what you're saying. He's a beefcake. He's an absolute beefcake. I think it's actually a really hard fight for Khamzat. I think it's an even fight. He's just big. Like, I can't imagine. He's not really been controlled, taken down. He's not shown a grappling deficit. I think he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu.
He is.
If he goes out there and takes down Paulo Costa and submits him straight away, fair fucking play. Like, you're already the real deal, right? You're already the real deal for sure. But it's like, that is an enormous man that is very, very skilled. So, I'd like to see it. What do you think on the actual matchup itself?
I think this fight... Now, Bobby Knuckles is a whole different conversation, and I don't think, if I'm Khamzat Chimaev or his team, I don't think people actually fighting or outside of fight... I don't think sometimes people really appreciate how good Bobby Knuckles is. Because of the way he looks, because of the way he sounds, and I don't know what it is. But he just gets drastically underestimated as a mixed martial artist, and he 100% is on the pound for pound list in my opinion. There is no two ways about it. You look at who he's beat
for sure,
and who he's fought, and what he's done to those people, 100%. But I think with the Paulo Costa matchup, this is really the deal breaker for fans, because with every fight, and there always will be, there's a pre-built-in, but he's a weight... I hate the term anyway, but he's a weight bully. He's fighting at 170, Gilbert Burns. Like, he's a lot bigger. Okay, so we got rid of that argument. He's not fighting ranked guys because he fought Kevin Holland. Okay, we get rid of that argument.
Always something.
With Paulo Costa. And it's always something. But I think this really gets rid of all the arguments and just says, right, go and show us against a top 5 185er who can grapple, who's got a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and who hits hard, good cardio. Let's see what you can do. And if he can pass that test, I think that the likes of Israel Adesanya, Alex Pereira, they're not going to be sleeping easily. They're not going to be sleeping easily. Yeah,
they're not going to be gagging for that matchup if he does what he does to Costa. No, it's an interesting one as well. Because, like, if you look at number 1 and 2, Adesanya and Pereira, like, they are legit specialist strikers. Not to say they can't grapple, but, like, that's by no means their strength. Do you know what I mean? So, like, on paper, Chimaev probably is a really hard fight for the pair of them, and vice versa, right? So it's like quite an interesting dilemma. Another thing as well that I was thinking, that obviously Till's not really ranked at the moment. I don't know if he is, but they are boys, so like that is the same division. That is another bit of parody.
I'm glad you said that actually, because I was thinking this exact thing. Because obviously when he was at 117, he was in the title picture. This was always a lingering conversation, but one which wasn't brought up too much because of the fact that he wasn't actually fighting 185 pounds consistently.
Yeah.
Darren Till, with a win over Driscus Duplessis in December,
it's a good fight as well.
He will be in the rankings, and with Darren Till having such a huge name, it's you sort of get that Conor McGregor treatment. Obviously not to the extent, but you get that. You get that push, and the fact that Adesanya has always been very, very publicly open about wanting the fight with Darren Till, that instantly just brings you to the forefront a little bit more. Now, Darren Till has always been on about that title, and if he's serious about it, they quite easily could cross paths at 185 pounds.
100%.
Do they fight each other though?
I don't think they do. I think what they've got going on is marketing dream, like the Smash Bros. I think they're doing great. I think they boost each other. I think if they fight, it's because they have to. Like, they're the clear-cut number one contenders. There's no other choice. Like, everyone's clamouring for that fight. Unless it's that, I don't think they will. Or for the belt, of course.
What is better than a budding bromance in UFC? I will tell you,
No,
a
true.
budding bromance that fight each other. That is UFC's wet dream. You think of Colby and Jorge Masvidal.
Yeah.
That
True.
does numbers. If Darren Till and Khamzat ever had to fight each other, the UFC will be absolutely licking their lips. But the last thing I will say on Khamzat Chimaev is, when we have a look at him in this title contention, and I'm not taking away anything that he has done so far, absolutely not. I've been singing his praises for literally years now. I think he's incredible, and what he's doing is incredible. And what he's doing, there isn't really anyone that's ever done it, to be perfectly honest. But when you have a look at the top of that division, because I'm coming back to what you said about specialist strikers. Now, you have a look at Izzy, Lesso Pereira. Izzy has made a career and made his success, if you like, of being such a specialist striker that he makes you fight in his conditions, in his realm, in his world, which is striking. He's got a very good takedown defense, and he's very difficult to take down. He's really tall, he's got really long legs, and obviously his distance control and management is so good, it's hard to find your shots, right? Unless you're just shooting way out of range, which obviously he's so good, and you'll see. So, again, coming back to what I said earlier about people always say, oh, you haven't done this, you haven't done this. With Khamzat Chimaev, we haven't seen his striking at that next level yet. We've seen his wrestling.
Sure.
We've seen his grappling. We've seen his submission skills. We haven't seen his ability to instigate where the fight goes with his striking. We haven't seen that. And I think when you're coming up against people like Robert Whittaker, and when you're coming up against people like Israel Adesanya, that is just a whole nother ballpark, which is going to be a really, really interesting conversation when that comes about. But